me ask you, because we can do that on a personal basis every place. What is the effect, though, when you as a leader say thank you, when you start asking people to do things instead of bossing them around to do things? When you take a moment to say good morning to everybody, hey, good job. What's that effect upon your team when you do that? What do you see as the effect of that?
So, well, first they feel appreciated, which is great. Who doesn't want to feel appreciated at work?
Hmm.
Um, when you ask more questions, so one of the ahas I've had in my career is that empathy and curiosity are really the same thing. I'm happy to go into a little more detail around that if you'd like, but
Yes.
empathy and curiosity are really the same thing. And so when we get genuinely curious about folks, they experience this as empathetic, they experience this as caring, and they experience us as a leader that really is looking out, wants to get to know us, and is looking out for our best interests. So it's a really powerful way to have people not only feel valued and respected, but also you're building a healthy environment around you when you do that.
You are. You are when you think about that. Now, I want you to go a little bit deeper on empathy and curiosity because I can vaguely see that. So help me get a clear picture of being empathetic and being curious kind of being the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, the same thing. So here's where it comes from. So back in my clinical days, and then even into my corporate days, I was regularly asked this question: Can you teach empathy? Isn't that an interesting question? Can you
It's,
teach empathy? Can
and
you teach someone to be empathetic?
the initial answer is no. It's just people have to have it, but maybe they're
Yeah.
because
But then there were some days, maybe I was a little self-confident. I don't know. I'd say, oh,
yeah.
I think I could teach this person empathy. So that kicked around in my head for 15 years. And then one day I was doing work with a division of a company, and they'd undergone 4 mergers and acquisitions in 4 years. So it's like 4 families being thrown under the same roof. And the president of this division said, I don't even know what kind of culture I've got. It's like 4 families. Can you help me out? And I said, well, sure. So I did a bunch of interviews. I interviewed a whole bunch of folks in the company, went back to him with a report. And I said, I've got a report for you, but the bottom line is everyone I interviewed to the person said you're a really empathetic leader. And I
Mm.
paused, waiting for him to say something great. And he was a bald guy with glasses, and he scratched his head, he wrinkled his brow, and he said, I don't think I'm empathetic at all. And he went on and he said, look, work is work. I don't want to talk about personal stuff here at work. We're here to do a job.
Mm.
And this is my team. I want my team to win, but it's not my family. The last thing I want to do is go out to dinner with a coworker. Like, I want to go home and see my family. And so he's telling me this, and I'm looking at this report, and because it makes sense to me because they say he's empathetic, but this doesn't sound empathetic at all. So I just kind of stare at him. He's staring back at me. Finally, he breaks the silence, and this is what he says to me. He says, there's one thing I do. I think the greatest compliment you can give anybody is ask them about the work they do. So when I'm walking around the office, I'm asking folks, so what are you working on? Well, tell me more about that. Well, where do you want to go in your career, and how can I help you get there? He takes that one topic of work, the only thing he really wants to talk about at work, but he gets genuinely curious about everybody he's working with. And the light bulb goes off for me that curiosity and empathy are the same. And the empowering thing for managers and leaders is you don't have to ask about every single thing about a person's life. You probably don't want to know all that stuff. But if you can find the 1 or 2 things you are genuinely curious about and truly ask those questions and to learn about the other people that work around you, they're going to experience you as really empathetic and caring. So it was
Yes.
an important takeaway for me that curiosity and empathy are so very related, if not exactly the same thing.
Because it seemed like to me, and coach me here, that if I ask questions and I care to hear the answer, that automatically connects me in an empathetic way.
Yeah. And here's the key. Curiosity is never the first question you ask. Curiosity is the second.
You mean the
So
first? Wow.
so if, for example, if I say, well, Glenn, now that we're coming out of this pandemic, where's this place I know you've been dreaming of going on vacation? Because we all have one, right?
Right, right,
Well,
right.
you're going to give me an answer. Now I've got a choice there. I haven't really been curious yet. I can now get curious and ask a follow-up question about what you just said, or I can say what I think is the worst phrase in the modern American language, and I can say, "Oh, good for you, Glenn. Good for you."
Good for you.
Which is just another way of me saying I don't really care what you just said, but you seem happy about that. But follow-up questions is where we really show curiosity, like, oh my gosh, that sounds great. Who's going with you? Or have you been there before? Or what are you most excited about in this place? Or do you think I should go there one day? I mean, there's so many
Okay.
different
Okay.
questions
I
that
track
are
with you
deeper.
because what you're saying is that first question just opens the door, but the second question is when the empathy comes in line because now
Right.
Let me get to know your job and why that part of this job is so important or so difficult. I want to know more
Yeah,
about how you're
that's right.
handling that. Okay, so now that becomes very clear to me.
Yeah.
Empathy and curiosity, that becomes very clear to me. That's powerful. Okay. And see, and that's another TED talk, by the way, right there. So,
Perhaps, perhaps if they ever would have me back, I don't know.